Hello, everyone. How are you today? Thank you very much for joining me. Excellent. My camera works. I can see everybody. Hello, hello. So welcome to everyone who's on Zoom. Welcome to everyone joining me on YouTube. For those of you in Zoom, if you could keep your answers and questions to the chat box rather than the Q&A, I'd be extremely grateful. It means that I don't have to open too many windows, because at the moment I've got YouTube on one screen over there. I've got you guys here. So it just helps me to manage the situation. My name's Colin. I'm one of the teachers and OET experts at E2 Language, and I'm very happy to have your company wherever you are. Q8, that's interesting. I'm in Melbourne. I'm locked down here in Melbourne, only going out for groceries. And yes, I'm just grateful I live in a house with a garden, so I can go outside and stretch my legs. So wherever you are, if you're locked down or not, I hope you are coping well with the current weirdness, and if you are in fact on the front line of the crisis, full strength to you. Thank you for your good work. Speaking of good work, let's talk a little bit about some of the things we got going at E2 Language. The first thing is that we're offering extended access to our packages because of corona issues, and we have a voucher code STAYHOME15 that gets you $15. That's the American dollar. $15 off your package. That's valid until the very end of this month, so take full advantage while this crisis carries on. We also offer at E2 Language, this is not crisis related, this is for pedagogical reasons, writing feedback for OET work submitted through the platform. In 1 or 2 days, the work is assessed and returned to you with a proper report. The notes are very high standard, and the report you get back is comprehensive. So if you want to know how you're doing, how you're progressing, by all means go ahead and do that. It's great. I think everyone is, if you're not self-isolating, you're probably studying alone anyway. So we provide you with these alternatives, these options to get into a little bit of feedback that will help you. Okay, yeah, not rather be bored than dead. The other thing we have is the one-to-one tutorials. They're done on Zoom like this. Again, we're experts at this. We haven't been doing this just overnight because of the crisis. We specialize in online learning, and the Zoom one-to-one classes are excellent. You book the time, the day of your choosing, and you go over 1 or 2 areas of the OET that are of particular concern to you. They last 45 minutes, they're very intense and extremely worthwhile. If you're having a problem with your upgrading, shoot an email through to the help desk, and they will help you to sort that out. Depending on the country, I know that sometimes there are some issues on payment channels, but anyway, if you're struggling, our help desk is working 24/7, kind of, and they'll help you. Cool. We also have, the other thing is the mini mock test. Mini mock test is a 2-hour test. It's something of a simulation of the OET, including a speaking role play, a piece of writing, and all of the reading and all of the listening. It's extremely worthwhile. Think about doing it, especially if you've never done the OET before. But even if you have, it's a good way of knowing where you stand skills-wise. So let's talk about today's class. In today's class, we'll test your English with a little quiz. We will learn a method for completing the writing task. We will analyze that task. We will then choose from relevant case notes. We will plan out your writing. We will write the start of the letter, which is standard format. We will then write the secondary issue and other details paragraphs. We sometimes do that when they are slightly thin, but we will do those 2 today. And we'll look then at the whole model letter and check out the criteria and complete with another quiz. So a lot to do, but we'll get it all done in about an hour. Thanks for being here. Have a pen and paper handy, as you will on the day of the test. It's very worthwhile to take notes. I think for myself, I always find it very clarifying. We'll do a quiz in a moment, but let's have a little review of the verb tenses of the English language. There are 12 in total. The ones in blue at the top are the most commonly used, but the 7 underneath, although they're in grey, they are also used very regularly. So the 5 at the top include the present simple. Mr. Lin urgently requires your expert assistance. The present continuous, Ms. Adams is currently receiving. The present perfect, Ms. Smith has been treated with cold compression therapy. The present perfect continuous, Mrs. Tran has been undertaking, and the past simple, Mr. Jones was admitted to St. Andrews to exact his operation. So there you've got a good selection of the most commonly used verb tenses, but the others are regularly used. Don't think that they're not just because they're in grey. And now we're going to do a little quiz. Once it appears on your screen, I will give you some time to get the job done. And yeah, 60 seconds exactly. So you've got your answers in brackets at the end of each sentence. Good luck filling in those gaps. I'll see you in a minute. Thank you. And if you want to share your answers, by all means, do so through the chat box. It's always nice to see what people are writing. Just checking my other feed as well. Let's see how you did. The nurse admitted that she had never seen such an aggressive case of shingles in someone so young. Number 2, not for the first time we have been forced, I love the inversion there, not for the first time we have been forced to reschedule the date of his operation. Excellent. Number 3, we underestimated how much of an impact the antiretrovirals would have on her autoimmune system. Number 4, could you put your shoulders here, lift your arms above your head, and then be sure to lie still until I finish the scan. All right, there you have it. Well done if you got those right. And let's move on now to an overview of the writing test. It requires you to read and analyze the task, to read and analyze case notes, and then to write a letter of referral, of discharge, or transfer. That's all there is. Some of you may be using slightly older material. I do have to say this most weeks. If you're using older material, there may be different kinds of letters other than these 3. If there are other letters that you're looking at, please throw that stuff in the bin. It's no good. Referral, discharge, or transfer, and that is all, my friends. So the time, 45 minutes, is divided up into 5 minutes of reading time and 40 minutes of writing time. In the reading time, you should read the task, work out who you're writing to and what action that person needs to take. You then read the case notes to work out the key facts of the patient's conditions. The headings and the subheadings are there to guide you. Just because they exist doesn't mean you have to include them. Okay, so just be thoughtful about that. And then the next thing, you need to identify relevant information and work out what is highly relevant or even quite relevant. If it is relevant at all, it goes in your letter. If it's not relevant, it stays out of your letter. It's that simple. Let me emphasize, the first 5 minutes is kind of like a reading comprehension exercise. You are tasked with reading and understanding the notes to work out what information is required to put into the letter for the person reading the letter. There may be a really interesting fact that is not relevant for the person you're writing to, so leave it out. You're the arbiter. Then in the 40 minutes of writing, you start with around about 5 minutes of planning. You plan out how many paragraphs there'll be. 3, 4, or 5 is absolutely standard. I find that mostly I write 4 or 5, but that's not a rule. 3 or 4 or 5 is okay. We're focusing on the 3rd and 4th paragraphs of the letter today, the secondary issue and the other details paragraphs. And then you write carefully for 30 to 35 minutes. And that's where your 180 to 200 words actually counts. So the other stuff, the address and salutation and the reference, that doesn't count. The guts of the letter, from the introduction to the request, that's the 180 to 200 word limit. So we start with 5 minutes of reading time. You're going to analyze the task to work out who you're writing the letter to decide what action that person needs to take. to decide what key information that person requires in order to do their job, and also to decide what prior knowledge that person has of your patient. Then you read the case notes to work out what is relevant, what is repeated but also relevant, and what is not relevant at all. We make a distinction between what is relevant and what's repeated and relevant because, again, for example, how many times do we need to know that the patient broke their leg 2 months ago? Okay, for example, how many times do I need to know that the patient is taking medicine for hypertension? Okay, so you would determine it is relevant, but how many times do I need to say it in the letter? That's for you to decide. Right, here's the task for today. I'd like to answer these 4 questions. Who am I writing this letter to? What action do I want the reader to take? What does the reader need to know? And what does the reader already know? You've got a minute to work out the answers to those questions. See you soon. Thank you very much. Thank you for your observations. Okay, let's have a look. Here are the answers. So, letter is requesting appropriate care. Who am I writing to? A dietitian. What action do I want the reader of this letter to take? Provide appropriate care. What does the reader need to know? The patient's needs. And what does the reader already know? No prior knowledge. That's kind of normal. Okay, so there you have it. 4 questions answered. Even if the answer is we have no knowledge, that's fine. All right, now we're going to look at the case and we're going to do that organization of what is relevant, what's repeated but also relevant, and what's not relevant at all. Excuse me. Now, a couple of things to bear in mind before you actually start this relates to the marking criteria. Content and conciseness and clarity. The content, you get top marks if key information has been included and important details have not been left out. And then for conciseness and clarity, you are not messing your letter up by throwing in irrelevant information. Okay, so these are the 2 things to bear in mind. When it comes down to it, you will see my organization of the case notes and you may have some disagreement. I don't know that we'll have fundamental disagreements, but you may ask, hang on a second, why didn't you include this? Or how about including that? If you can justify it to yourself, include it. I'm writing to the dietitian. What does the dietitian need to know to do his or her job? So bear those things in mind from the criteria. Here are the case notes. You've now got 5 minutes. 5 minutes to organize your notes according to relevance, repetition and relevance, and non-relevance. And I wish you very, very good luck. I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for those of you who shared your observations with me. I know it's hard. It's not the same, obviously, typing your ideas down as it is taking your pencil and just underlining. But that's what you would do, obviously, on test day, is underline what you consider to be relevant, repeated and relevant, and just leave to the side the stuff which is not relevant at all. So let's have a look. This is my, in red, idea of relevant. Patient's name is Janet Fagan. Age, some information about family background, a little bit of past medical history, a bit of medication, a bit about her admission, and a little bit more about the discharge plan. So that's all highlighted in red. Now in blue, as you can see, is quite a lot of repeated information under on admission, medical progress, and discharge plan. Okay, so as you can see, this is how I've organized the notes. If you want to take a screenshot, that would be an excellent thing to do. So please go ahead and do that, if you don't mind. And if you've got any doubts or questions you want to say, Colin, why did you do this? Or Colin, why did you do that? I don't mind. It's a conversation I'm happy to have. But that's the information that I want to include in my letter to the dietitian. Okay? Ms. Mary Petronis. Cool. Let's move forward. Thank you. 40 minutes of writing time. A couple of notes here. The first one is about being flexible. OET is not, and I'm going to say it, is not the IELTS. I know a lot of people who are doing the OET have come to the OET after having the experience with the IELTS. The IELTS is a very interesting test. It's a very well-known test. And I think people come into the OET thinking, well, it's kind of like the IELTS but for doctors and nurses. It's not. The OET is a unique test. It's a test in its own right. And the approach you need in order to achieve top marks in the OET is different to that you need, say, in the IELTS test. So please be flexible, and flexibility is the key. If I take 10 excellent candidates and give them the same task, they'll all do very well, but they won't write the same thing. Do you see what I'm saying? So be flexible, have a slightly flexible approach. Don't forget that we are offering extended access on all packages, and we've got the Stay Home 15 voucher code to get you $15 off the course of your choice. Moving back to the writing, we're focusing today on secondary issue and other details, and you'll be focusing just on those two. Normally, of course, at this point, you'd be going to do the planning for everything. Now, good question. When you're writing, do you have to pick only the relevant and repeated statements? Yes, that's the point. When you're writing, you are focused entirely on information which is relevant and repeated and relevant for the person receiving the letter to be able to read it and do their job. That's the objective. Cool. So planning and writing. You need to address the recipient following an outline. You need to take notes and plan. You need to work out how many paragraphs are going into the letter and what information goes into each of those paragraphs. And then when you write, you need to continually check the relevance and the importance of what you're doing, leaving a few minutes at the end. Please do that to check your work. It's the small things that you can catch that accumulate to be quite destructive if you don't look. So let's talk about the letter outline, your format of the letter. You start with the title and full name of the recipient at the top, and then their job title and full address. Then you put the date. What date? Just put the date of the test. I know test dates are getting mixed up all over the place because of Corona, but the date that you actually sit down to do your test is the date of your letter. Then the reference line, the patient's title, Mr. Mrs. Ms, and then their full name, and either their age or date of birth, doesn't matter which, and then dear Dr. Mr. Mrs. Ms and their family name. And at the bottom, you sign off with yours sincerely, if you know their name, yours faithfully, if you don't know their name. So if your letter starts, dear sir / madam, or to whom it may concern, you end with yours faithfully. Now you've got 90 seconds, please. All of the information to do the letter outline is on the left-hand side of your screen. Lay that out for me. I'll see you in 90 seconds. Okay, thank you for your observations. Let's see how it looks. Here it is, Ms. Mary Petronis, dietitian, 48 Main Road, Old Town. Then the date, 16/01/2019. Then the reference line, re Mrs. Janet Fagan, 63 years old. Then, dear Ms. Petronis, and at the bottom, yours sincerely, nurse or registered nurse will do. If the date goes above Ms. Mary Petronis or below Old Town, it doesn't matter. If the reference line, re Mrs. Janet Fagan, goes above or below the salutation, dear Ms. Petronis, that doesn't matter either. Please worry about the important stuff. Okay, get this right, but this should not be your obsession when you're doing your letter. All right, and thanks to those of you who submitted your observations to me. The guts of the letter, the 180 to 200 words, is what we're interested in right now. We're focusing on secondary issue and other details. So the next phase of writing is planning and checking the case notes. You are solely responsible for deciding how many paragraphs will go into your letter, and you are solely responsible for deciding what information goes into each paragraph. We're focusing on those two, as I said. So the question in this is the secondary issue. The main issue has been covered. What are the other issues to cover? Okay, it's there on the screen, secondary issue and other details. Please take 90 seconds to decide which the secondary issue and other details issues are from these particular case notes. Okay, thank you. This is what we've got. Okay, secondary issue and other details. So for social family background, we have 5 to 6 glasses of red wine per day. Goodness me. High red meat, low vegetable diet, country walks at weekends. BMI, a bit high. Patient agrees to alcohol reduction, limit to weekends, weight goal of 66 kilos, blood pressure goal, most recent diet, and discharge plan, the increased light exercise regimen. Okay, so there we have it. They're my notes. Appreciate that. And thanks again to those of you who shared your observations with me. Useful language that you may want to employ to get this done. Diet consists of, in order to, needs to reduce, would benefit from. The case notes are here for the secondary issue and other details paragraphs. You've got 7 minutes to do this task. I wish you good luck. I will see you all in 7 minutes time. And by all means, continue to share your work with me in the chat box or through the comments. Look forward to seeing your work. Thank you very much. And again, thank you very much to those people who have been writing their answers for me. Really appreciate it. Let's have a look. So we got two paragraphs here. The first is, Mrs. Fagan has a BMI of 29.9, although she recently dieted and lost 2.6 kilograms and regularly goes for walks on weekends. She drinks 5 to 6 glasses of red wine per day, goodness, and her diet consists mainly of red meat rather than vegetables. New paragraph. In order to achieve her ideal weight of 66 kilograms and blood pressure of 130/90, Mrs. Fagan will need to reduce her alcohol intake and maintain a low-fat diet. She would also benefit from 30 minutes of daily exercise. Wouldn't we all? There's the whole letter. You may now want to take a screenshot. You'll notice in this particular letter, and rather unusually, I think, but again, this is why you have to be flexible, the request paragraph is quite long in this case. Look at that. Be prepared for that. Be prepared to adapt to the new reality in every new set of case notes. Too often I come across OET candidates who think it's got to be this many sentences in each paragraph. It doesn't work that way. Okay. Have a look at that. Take a screenshot. I'll give you a couple of seconds to do so, and we will move on. Okay, cool. Back to the criteria. Language, specifically cohesive devices, an important element of grammar. They must be used accurately and must assist in meaning. This is a screenshot sort of a page. Conjunctions. Famously, we have fanboys at the top, for and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. But then all of the other ones that we've got there too. So the example we have of a sentence using the conjunctions, Dr. Smith, comma, who has been practicing for over 40 years, comma, is both up to date and open to some of the more radical therapies. So there you have a nice example of cohesive devices. Make sure you've taken the screenshot and we move on to relative clauses. Now, relative clauses are extremely useful and we use them all the time using relative pronouns, who, which, that, where, whose, and whom, for example. Let's look at some relative clauses. St. Thomas's, comma, which is the biggest hospital in the city, comma, is seriously understaffed. Number two, Dr. Spivey, comma, whose work on Lyme disease has been widely published, comma, will be giving a talk this evening. And number three, the accident and emergency department, comma, where our patients are triaged, comma, is in dire need of extra seating. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is observe this. Okay, the use of cohesive devices to compress several ideas into a single sentence. So here we've got Mrs. Hamer felt weak. Mrs. Hamer's blood pressure dropped suddenly. Mrs. Hamer sat down. Mrs. Hamer put her head between her legs. Putting her head between her legs made Mrs. Hamer feel better after 15 minutes. So it's a happy story. And it comes down to this. Look at this, a single sentence. Mrs. Hamer, who was suffering from weakness as a result of sudden onset low blood pressure, remedied the problem by sitting with her head between her legs for 15 minutes, and then she felt better. Oh, what a happy outcome, if only it were all so simple. So, a little quiz for you, my friends, as soon as it appears. Bearing in mind the cohesive device ideas we've just spoken about. 2 minutes, please, to make these 3 groups of sentences into single sentences. Great, thank you. Thank you for your ideas. I appreciate that. Let's have a look. PTSD, which is prevalent among ex-servicemen, should be treated with medication and therapy. His heartburn, which was worse after meals containing wheat, was alleviated with OTC medication. And number 3, Mary's rash, which got itchy every time she went swimming, was very painful. Okay, all using the relative pronoun which, all non-defining relative clauses. There you go. For more information, do go to our platform. It's great. And also check out the official OET, occupationalenglish-test.org website for information about writing. Also, keep up to date with what's going on with your particular test centre through the official channels of the Occupational English Test. Don't rely on rumours. It will be revealed clearly in the on the website of the OET. So don't say, "Oh, some person told me on social media." Bad. Okay. Just obey the channels of the OET. Also, if you're registered for the test, you will be contacted directly through email for sure. For more reading, go to Science Daily because it's brilliant and it's free. And if you've got any questions, do ask them of me. Suffice to say, we have the Stay Home 15 voucher code. Get $15 off your extended access package. And we also have the mini mock test, which is totes amaze, takes a couple of hours to do, and really will be a window in onto your capabilities as a test taker. That was writing for nurses. If you've got any questions, do ask them. If not, I will be very happy to see you again another time. I'll be back tomorrow with writing medicine. And thank you also to people on YouTube for joining me. It's nice to have your comments and your questions too. Nice. All right, everyone, listen, thank you very much. Good luck wherever you are and whatever you're doing. I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.